Most engineers make the same costly mistake when choosing their energy career path, and it costs them years of their lives and hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost income. I know this because 5 years ago I was sitting in those same lecture halls, completely paralyzed by choice, just trying to find the best way to get into this $300 billion industry. Only once I knew the best path to take could I fast track my career path to reaching the senior level in just 3 years. In the next few minutes, I'm going to compare the 6 energy career paths on offer in 2026 so you can find the perfect match for your personal situation. I'll be scoring each pathway across 4 criteria, and at the end we'll compare all 6 side by side. The first criteria is industry outlook. Where does this career path sit in 10 years time? The second criteria is skills. What skills can you expect to build, and are these niche or transferable to different pathways? Third is work-life balance. What does commitment beyond the standard 40-hour work week actually look like? And to round it all off is probably the most concerning one, being salary. What does entry-level pay actually look like, and how does this scale over the first 5 years of your career? Each criterion is scored out of 10 for a total of 40 for each pathway. The first energy engineering pathway is the asset owner. Asset owners own and operate the physical assets that underpin our energy networks, whether that's the poles and wires of the electricity networks, the pipelines of the gas networks, or the renewable or fossil fuel generation assets. Now let's bring up the scorecard for the first time, and I'll walk you through each score. Starting off with industry outlook, which gets a 7. The energy transition is driving billions in network investment, with poles, wires, and storage assets requiring upgrades to support increasing demand. And this demand isn't going anywhere, but the pace of change is limited in such large regulated businesses. Skills also scored a 7 out of 10. You can expect to build strong fundamental skills across power systems, asset management, and compliance. Solid and well-respected skills, but the utility specialization limits transferability across the different pathways. Work-life balance is the defining advantage of this pathway, scoring a perfect 10. Standard business hours, minimal weekend work, a genuine right to disconnect. If you want a career in energy without sacrificing your personal life, no other pathway comes close. And to cap it all off, salary scores an 8 out of 10. As a graduate, you can expect to earn $80,000 to $100,000, with full-time roles earning from $110,000 to $140,000 within the first 5 years. Whilst the ceiling is lower than other pathways like oil and gas, the strong and predictable floor provides a reliable trajectory to put life planning on autopilot. As a past graduate who worked for an asset owner, I could personally vouch for the opportunity to learn and apply tangible skills to real-world engineering problems. However, if you're like me and enjoy a faster-paced environment, the next pathway might be the one for you. The second pathway is the system and market operator. These are the overarching bodies responsible for planning, operating, and regulating Australia's energy networks with a system-level perspective. These bodies have responsibilities spanning real-time operations, ensuring the reliable, secure, and safe operation of today's power system, and system planning, designing and enforcing the rules and frameworks that will shape the energy transition. The raw complexity involved with the energy transition makes the pilot of the ship all that more important. Regardless of how the transition unfolds, system and market operators will be central to it, and that earns a perfect 10. In terms of skills, they score a 7 out of 10. System and market operators develop deep expertise in how the electricity market and physical grid actually interact. Whilst these skills are highly regarded throughout the sector, they're quite hard to translate externally. For work-life balance, I've scored an 8 out of 10. With any real-time operations roles comes the need for 24/7 support. However, this level of support is only applicable to backroom support teams really involved with providing that one-on-one support. For the remainder of the workforce, the work-life balance is similar to that of the sector-leading asset owners. Similar to asset owners, salary scores are 7, with entry-level roles starting at from $80,000 to $100,000, again base salary, and progressing to $110,000 to $135,000 within 5 years and full-time roles. Whilst the salary is not a class leader, the payoff comes with the intellectual credibility and sector-wide reputation that these roles build over time. Although the whole of systems focused skill set may seem like a risk, it's hedged by Australia's rapid rollout of the energy transition. However, if the specialist mindset isn't for you and you'd rather assemble a broad base of knowledge and deploy this across a range of applications, the next pathway is pretty hard to beat. The third pathway is consulting and professional services. 1 month you're helping a mining company transition their fleet to heavy electric vehicles. Next, you're advising a federal government on renewable policy. The month after that, you're doing technical due diligence on a $2 billion wind farm acquisition. Specialist boutiques like Energia and Oakley Greenwood, or the big four being Deloitte, EY, PwC, KPMG, is where this work lives. As energy accelerates, the demand for advisory support to navigate complexity from asset owners, developers, and regulatory bodies continues to rise. Consulting demand scales with complexity, and complexity in energy is never ending, earning the industry outlook a 9 out of 10. In terms of skills, the varying scope of work fosters the most transferable skill set in energy. You can look forward to developing technical understanding, commercial acumen, and communication skills all simultaneously. However, the constant shift in scope limits you to prioritizing breadth over depth, limiting this score to an 8 out of 10. Having personally worked alongside consultants on projects in the past, 50 to 60 hour work weeks are standard and remote travel is common. I've had many late days where as I'm leaving, they simply transition to their next project. But the lowest score is honestly the trade-off for the skill acceleration, invaluable networks, and long-term upside consulting has to offer. In terms of salary, I'm scoring this a 6 out of 10. Whilst graduates enter at the lower point of around 60 to 75,000 base per year, the higher ceiling creates a steep progression curve. Top performers who reach the senior level within 5 years can earn upwards of $150,000. In my opinion, consulting is quite the lifestyle pathway. If you can trade off the demanding nature, you'll reap the financial knowledge but what if you want to trade some office time for the satisfaction of being able to drive past the wind farm in regional South Australia and say, I built that? That's the experience on offer within Pathway 4 by developers and EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction firms. Companies like Neoen, Worley, Acciona are turning renewable energy approvals into physical infrastructure, providing experience to follow a project from a blank spreadsheet to an asset producing power for up to 30 years, covering all 5 project phases: feasibility, design, procurement, construction, and commissioning. As you probably see on the news, Australia's renewable energy investment pipeline is significant, involving a range of solar, wind, storage, and transmission projects. This translates into consistent demand for developers and EPC firms across the next decade, justifying the 8 out of 10 score. The requirement to support all 5 project phases encourages the development of broad technical skills, justifying the score of a 9 out of 10. Combined with exposure to commercial arrangements and stakeholder management, this skill set travels well across the sector and into adjacent industries. However, the work-life balance can be similar to consulting. Supporting projects through the construction phase is demanding, involving long hours, site-based work, and accountability for high-value decisions. The project cycle naturally creates volatility, which rewards engineers who are commercially aware and mobile, but is important to be aware of before committing to the pathway. In terms of salary, I've assigned it a middle-of-the-road 7 out of 10. Graduates can expect to enter around 75 to 85k base salary, with several years of project experience unlocking senior positions that can attract up to $150,000. Of all of the pathways, developers and EPCs offer the greatest sense of tangible impact. For engineers motivated by building something real, this is the pathway that delivers it most directly. But if building things from scratch doesn't appeal to you, why not work for one of Australia's largest export earners for the last 40 years? The 5th pathway is resources and energy, more commonly labelled oil and gas. When most energy students hear those 3 words, they instantly switch off. Dying industry, not what I studied for, wrong side of history. Here's 4 reasons why you shouldn't immediately dismiss it. Number 1, Australia is the world's largest liquefied natural gas, or LNG, exporter. Number 2, Woodside and Santos, 2 of the largest companies in Australia, are not closing next year. 3, the International Energy Agency has oil and gas demand persisting well into the 2040s. And number 4, the engineers running those assets right now are amongst the highest paid in the country. So what's the industry outlook? Policy direction introduces a long-term transition risk across a 30-year career, with the incline to adopt a more renewable generation mix. However, with reliability shortfalls forecast by AEMO persisting, the need for gas within the evening peaks will persist well beyond 2030, justifying a modest score of 6 out of 10. For skills, it earns a 7 out of 10. Strong processes, reliability, and operations engineering skills are embedded within oil and gas, mainly due to the risk involved. If I was in oil and gas right now, I'd deliberately prioritize transferable skills so that you can use them to launch into other pathways as required. Although not all oil and gas roles require fly-in, fly-out arrangements, for those that do, it becomes a lifestyle, not just a working arrangement. Extended time away from home has a cost that salary can't always cover. It's an honest trade-off and not for everyone. However, graduates can start at $90,000 to $120,000 for workers that are on this FIFO arrangement, with mid-level engineers earning from $130,000 to upwards of $180,000 annually. Should your role require you to fly in and out, you won't have to spend $1 for around half of the year, which makes the salary case for this pathway unmatched, earning a perfect 10. As you may have gathered, oil and gas is the highest risk but potentially the highest reward pathway in the sector. The engineers who understand this take the salary aggressively, build transferable skills deliberately, and plan their next move before the market demands it. Every pathway so far has had one thing in common: they're all trying to digitalize, which leaves the final pathway in a unique position to capitalize. The sixth and final pathway is the technology and service provider. Millions of solar panels, batteries, and electric vehicles are connecting to a grid that was never designed to support bidirectional power flow. Asset owners and system operators need enhanced visibility of these assets to operate a secure system, and they need it yesterday. The companies servicing that need are technology and service providers, building software, data platforms, and the automation tools to manage that complexity. Startups like GridSight and GreenSync, alongside major players like Siemens Energy and Schneider Electric, are all pivoting to meet this need as demand continues to outpace supply. Network digitalization is not a trend. It's an industry imperative if the energy transition is to succeed. Energy technology roles grew faster than any other segment of the sector in 2025, and that trend is certainly not reversing, justifying a 9 out of 10. And now, I might be biased, but the intersection of energy and tech provides the most future-proof skill set in the sector, justifying a 9 out of 10 for your skills. There's no scenario where software, data, and automation does not prove pivotal within energy and adjacent industries. In terms of work-life balance, it's a bit of a mixture. Established tech firms can operate closer to standard hours with genuine flexibility, whereas startup environments can vary. This pathway honestly offers the best of both worlds. Similar to consulting, you can expect entry-level salaries around $70,000 to $95,000 base at the graduate level, scaling to $110,000 to $150,000 within 5 years. As with standard startups, company due diligence matters. Not every energy tech company is well capitalized, rounding out the scores at a 7 out of 10. Tech and service providers is the pathway I'm personally watching quite closely in 2026. The combination of future-proof skills and a dynamic working environment positions it as a top prospect for any ambitious engineer looking to make their mark in energy. But how does it stack up against the rest? Judging the rankings side by side, it's a three-way tie between asset owners, system and market operators, and technology and service providers, suggesting those three to be the collective best pathways in energy in 2026. But the right pathway for you isn't necessarily the one with the highest score. It's the one that matches your priorities, and a single aggregate score can't tell you that. To solve this problem, I've created a 90-second quiz that weights these criteria based upon your personal strengths, interests, and ambitions, and uses these weights to calculate your optimal energy career pathway. If you want to skip the next 6 hours deliberating on your next energy career move, you can find it in the top link in the description.